Good morning, and welcome to the Surface Navy Association's Waterfront Symposium here in beautiful sunny San Diego. Welcome to our live audience here in the crowd in our tent, and to our virtual audience, thank you for joining us. Today we're going to be talking to our enlisted panel about education, training, and whatever they've got in their side pocket, I don't know. It'll be a surprise for all of us. First and foremost, for our live audience here, if you have questions, we do ask that you use the QR code and that you use your app to put the questions in so our live audience can see it as well, and so that I can see it loud and clear on the iPad up here and not have difficulty hearing with echoing or the outside noises. If you have difficulty finding the QR code, please see one of our administrative personnel to your left. That said, I would love to be the one to introduce you to our panelists, but one, their names are difficult, and they're difficult to deal with, so I'm going to have them introduce themselves. And I'm going to start with, first to my right, Force Master Chief Detchi. Would you talk about your role, what you're doing now, how long you've been in the Navy, and why you joined the Navy?
Okay, great. Thanks, Joe. So again, my name is Force Master Chief Chris Detchi. I'm the Force Master Chief for Navy Personnel Command. Been in the Navy for 32 years. Joined the Navy to prove a point to my parents that I wasn't going to do what they wanted me to do. And boy, did I show them 32 years later, Force Master Chief in the United States Navy, absolutely loving what I do. As I mentioned, I'm the Force Master Chief for Navy Personnel Command. That encompasses a lot. That includes Navy pay, distribution, PSDs, TSCs, brigs, and mortuary affairs, all of which are our no-fail missions. We're committed to the sailors from start to finish in their careers, making sure they're getting paid on time, making sure we're getting the commands filled to where they need to be, and that, I can go on for another couple hours, but I know we have limited time, so thanks,
Thank
Joe.
you very much, Force. I appreciate that. And to his right, Command Master Chief Lisa Tisdale, would you introduce yourself, what your role is, when you, or how long you've been in the Navy, and why you came in the Navy?
Absolutely. Good morning, everyone. Master Chief Lisa Tisdale. I've been in the Navy for 32 years also. I'm originally from Grenada, Mississippi, very small town. I joined the Navy because my brother joined the Navy, and growing up, I always wanted to do what he was doing, even whether he liked it or not, which he hated it. So I was like, okay, you joined the Navy, I'm joining the Navy too. He got out after 3 years, and here I am, 32 years in, so. But I am the Region CMC for Region Southwest. I have 10 installations, including the Metro installations here. And it's a great job. I love it.
Thank you very much. And Force Carlson, let's talk about the surface side of the house here.
Thanks,
a little bit
Joanne.
about yourself.
Well, good morning. I'm Force Master Chief Carlson. I work for Admiral Kitchener in Commander Naval Surface Forces, U.S. Pacific Fleet. So I'm responsible to the Admiral and the Surface Fleet for the man training and equipping of the surface ships in the surface fleet. I've got 29 years in the Navy. I was originally an OS, and I joined out of the Midwest. And your question on why did you join the Navy? My father served. He was an opticalman, which is a rate we don't have anymore, for a number of years. And when I graduated high school, I was always sort of jealous of his career experiences. I can remember looking through his old black and white cruise books, behind a chair, and it was just sort of inspiring to look at some of the fun he had as a young man and as a young sailor, sailing ships around the Med. And so after I graduated high school, I decided I was going to do this. And I think, like most sailors, I only thought I'd do one tour and get out. But after 29 years, I'm still really enjoying it and appreciate the influence that I have at SurfPac.
And Force, what is your role? Talk about a little bit more about that job.
Sure. So, to support Admiral Kitchener, any of the enlisted related issues that come off the 90 ships in the Pacific, I provide guidance and counsel to him, and then also reducing friction within the surface force. And Jason and I were just talking about a flight deck net retrieval tool that we're working on to try to keep sailors more safe and to keep flight decks operational and safe. And sometimes I find myself working pay problems and working with Force DG to do that. And it's one of the things I enjoy the most about the job, where you're working on either physical equipment or sailor problems, or you're trying to answer or develop programs that are going to affect the Navy 40 years from now, working on our new frigate class ship and the manning requirements for that. So it's it's a lot of fun, to work on issues that you need to affect this hour of today, and then also work on surface ship challenges that'll affect the Navy 40 years from now. So I've really enjoyed it so far. I've been in the position since March.
We're going to talk a little bit about that later, how long you've been in that position. Force Master Chief, now talk about yourself and your role on the East Coast and what you're doing with Surface Navy and how long you've been in and why you joined the Navy.
Good morning, Joe. Thank you very much. Been in for 30 years, originally from Western Pennsylvania, and my story is not as good as theirs. My father gave me a choice of becoming his apprentice, he was an electrician, or joining the military. And being a coward, I joined the military because I was deathly afraid of my father. But I've stayed in the Navy because being a surface sailor, being a surface warrior is tough, it's challenging, and it's always different. So stayed in for 30 years, and now I serve Admiral McLean on the East Coast, the counterpart to Forrest Carlson and Vice Admiral Kitchener, to again prepare our ships through the maintenance phase, certification phase, and deployment, and then back to sustainment to provide ready forces on behalf of our nation. My role on behalf of the Admiral is to get the pulse of the ships, to understand where the crew is at, where the family is at, mentor the CMCs, and also operate a little bit outside. That what the information is coming back up through the staff and through the chain of command. I provide a different perspective to the Admiral that, hey, sir, we might want to look at this. And that's what I do on the East Coast to the same operational ends that Greg does on the West Coast.
Thank you very much. And so you can see in our audience that we have a breadth of experience up here with this panel when it comes to man, train, and equip, education and training, orders, installation. So please, any questions for this panel, and I'm sure that they can answer it, and if not, we'll just make something up. So for our first question, I'm going to ask Force Dici, what is being done to reduce leadership, the E7 through E9, gaps at sea?
Great question, Joe, thanks. Well, what we're looking at right now is misalignment of leadership billets at sea. We can go in and we've seen that there's a number of E9s filling E8 or E7 billets and up and down the spectrum in all three pay grades. One of our biggest priorities, I deal with Force Nupp and Force Carlson, is making sure we have proper mating on ships, and it starts with leadership. So over the coming months, we're going to be taking a hard look at everyone who's in a misaligned billet and realigning them. Now, before everyone gets upset and starts getting concerned and calling Millington and showing up outside of my office with pitchforks and torches, we're going to have some business rules set in place. If you've just come off of 3 years of sea duty, you've been on shore for less than a year or a year and a half, and hey, we're not going to call you and say, hey, Master Chief, listen, we get it. You're in the Chief's billet. We need you out at sea on a Master Chief. We're going to take that into account. But we are in the process right now of actively looking at all of the misaligned billets. So over the next month and a half, you're going to be seeing a lot of movement happening in the senior billets with the hopes of getting more senior leadership aligned at sea.
Outstanding. Thank you for that. I'm going to talk about some sea challenges. So Force Nupp, how are you and your CMCs preparing for the operational readiness and the combat effectiveness of the enlisted sailors?
No, great question, Joe. And so this is what we focus on every day. So if you take a look at the OPNAV instruction 1306.2, which is the governing instruction for Command Master Chiefs, Chapter 5 is 1 page long. And it says that the CMC is laser focused in on the operational readiness and combat preparedness of whatever command they're assigned to, or whatever the commanding officer otherwise dictates. We are responsible for unifying the Chief's mess, aligning to the certifications, the training, to get our crew together as a tough, resilient force to take that warship over the horizon and into harm's way. First to deter, then to blunt, and then to defeat any adversary that chooses to challenge us on the high seas. That's what the CMC does in the Surface Navy.
Outstanding. And for your CMCs, we get training in the CMC course. Do you also do some training with your CMCs to kind of accentuate that section and that operational readiness? Because it's not just something you're born with doing.
No, that's true. So we do draw from every section of the Navy, whether it's aviation, surface, submarines. You all come onto a surface platform, and they go through Newport, Rhode Island for 2 weeks, CMC COM course of instruction. Then once they come down to the TICOM, it becomes Greg's responsibility, my responsibility, to mentor and guide them. And so whether it's hosting them over at the HQ, us going on the deck on their platform, or having monthly mentoring sessions as a group off-site to where we talk about whether, hey, what's your head hurter? What's the change in the 80-10 when it comes to damage control? Or what's the new baseline coming on? And how does the CMC get after that to support the commander and the crew? Did I answer your question there,
Absolutely.
Joe?
Thank you very much. Master Chief Tisdale, for you, what is Region Southwest's relationship with the ships, reference piers and parking and such? You know, some of our sailors, you know, when we're young on the ships and we come up to the pier and we take advantage of the programs here, we don't really understand that relationship of the naval installation to the surface Navy, if you will, and the connection with the parking piers and things like that.
I would like to think we have a very good working relationship with the piers, the ships, and everything. We have a new admiral here, Rear Admiral Barnett, and he is all about customer service. That's what we are. We are a customer service entity to the ships. And so what we like to do is take care of any problems that the surface personnel may have, so when they go out to sea, they're not worried about anything. Let us handle that. You go out to sea to do your mission and handle things. And what a lot of people don't realize is once the ships are gone, we're here taking care of their families also, which takes a load off of them while they're out completing their mission. We take care of the home port ashore. I know parking is you know, at a premium around here, but we have contracts in place to try to mitigate some of those problems. The housing areas for their families, commissaries, CDCs, different things like that. We just try to make sure we stay on top of everything that they need so they can do their mission appropriately.
Outstanding. So talking about that and the installation and families and housing and so forth, our next question is, are there any plans to build new barracks instead of continuing to just rehab the old ones?
There are plans to build, you know, funding is an issue with everything these days, but we do have MILCON projects in place. We're just waiting to get them funded, and right now we're just trying to make our sailors as comfortable as possible in the barracks that we do have. But yes, we do have projects that we're working on. It's just a funding issue. We go around daily looking at barracks to make sure that we're providing what the sailors need and what the sailors want. So we're actively pursuing that. It is one of our biggest head hurters here in the metro area and in all of our installations. But it is one of his top priorities to get that done, yes.
And so barracks for the surface sailors, you know, that first tour, young E3 coming on board their first ship. What can they look forward to in the barracks or the potential for out in town?
We're, like here on San Diego, you know, home port ashore is what it's called. So we let them decide who they send out to be in the barracks, because we don't control that. But we are rehabbing those barracks for those sailors to be comfortable. We are, when they reach a certain rank, E4 over 4 years, they can go out in town, get BAH to go out in town. Apartments out in town are, you know, kind of scarce these days also. So we're monitoring that and trying to do different things to make their life a little bit easier. It's a lot going on with that, but we are on top of it, and we want to make them as comfortable as possible.
Outstanding. Thank you very much for that.
You're welcome.
Forrest Carlson. So let's talk about, you know, in the avenue of training and being the surface force. What is the benefit? We understand that the 2-week extension or so of recruit training to expand the firefighting. You know, how does that blend into your role and your expectations here with the surface ships? And what can that first ship's command, that sailor's first ship command, what can they do to help extend what they're going to now get in that extended firefighting?
Yeah, that's a good question, Joe. You know what, from a surface forces, at least in the Pacific, and I'm sure Jason would agree, we're so very thankful that NETSI is dedicating more resources to that schoolhouse and extending that training. So from what I understand, we're extending the level of training at least 2 weeks to add additional firefighting training, and they're in the process of working on a brand new trainer up there also. So we're trying to get to the fleet a higher level of training to show up, and so the fleet will continue to build on that when they're running their damage control training drills, when you're doing duty section drills on the weekends. And so we're trying to raise the level in the bar that they'll get, and so hopefully we'll see that very shortly. I think all of us know that every sailor is a firefighter and how critical that is, the ship survivability, whether you're pier side or in a maintenance phase, or whether you're at sea. We did a major fires study earlier this year, and the results aren't completely out, but I'll tell you, out of the 15 major fires that we've had, 13 of them have been on ships in the maintenance phase, and it's a very high threat environment. And so we've been working very hard on a damage control DCI program that our afloat training groups are rolling out to make sure we're raising the bar and the awareness of fire safety in those very hazardous conditions of being within the shipyard. So I'm looking forward for that new trainer to get online up in Great Lakes, and I'm very appreciative of the weeks that we're adding, so the sailors that we get out to the fleet on the ships have a higher level of readiness and are prepared to defend their ships against fire.
So do you see, for either you or Force NEP, do you see any of that damage control training on the ship increasing in their DC trainers or the PQS, JQR, to add anything additional into that for firefighting, whether it's from the extension in boot camp or from recent tragedies with fires on board ships?
So we do see it in the fleet. So those extra 2 weeks are absolutely key. And what we've done in the surface Navy by our predecessors, Force Osborne and Force Goodrich, rewrote the enlisted surface warfare specialist qualification instruction. So every sailor has to be at least damage control PQS 312. The minute you walk on board that ship, you're assigned to a repair locker. You are watched over by Decade. You're taught how to crawl, walk, run along that hose into the locker, be a boundary setter, run the messages. We're setting a higher standard. We don't have any drop quotas in our firefighting instruction in Norfolk. Every crew, every captain is getting their sailors down there, and they're performing very, very well. USS Gettysburg, about a month and a half ago, they responded splendidly to a casualty they had on board. And that wasn't a bunch of first classes or chiefs responding. That was young, first-term sailors who knew what they should do, and they ran towards the casualty, and they handled it. That's what we're seeing in the fleet because of everything that RTC is doing, and then the extension into the surface Navy of raising that bar, because every Marine may be a rifleman, but every sailor is a firefighter.
Outstanding.
If I could add to Jason's comments, the other thing that we added to the ESWAS instruction was sounding and security, which wasn't previously in there. And it was to draw attention to all the fluid systems below the waterline and try to create enhanced readiness so they really understand the systems. And so that was a great thing also. And we're now running more challenging drills within those maintenance periods. There's a NAVC instruction called 8010 that requires us to run advanced drills within that maintenance phase, and they are challenging. And so we've seen some commands be incredibly successful, and we've seen others that had needed additional coaching. So I'm very thankful that it's raising the level of awareness in the wake of the Bonhomme Shard and these other 15 major fires that we've had. So ESWAS, and what we're asking for the individual, we see ESWAS as not only an individual qualification, but it's also a qualification for their entire command. It raises the level of bar and provides greater survivability for just them as a sailor, but also more importantly for their command.
So are either of you seeing some of those changes like actually in effect during your ship visits, or getting some feedback from the mess or from some of the triads?
So far, I've gotten positive feedback. I'll tell you that I do get negative feedback too. One of the challenges that when we were looking at the ESWAS program and offering comment into the retooling of it, was we had some junior sailors that were more focused on their warfare development than maybe their in-rate development. So we had seamen that might get qualified in 2 or 3 warfare devices, but were having a very hard, challenging time getting qualified as a third-class petty officer.
Yeah.
And because of that, we saw ESWAS as an advanced sailor training and requirement. So we wrote some policy that both of our admirals had signed out that doesn't allow for non-POs and for third classes to get qualified like they might used to. And so I've gotten some negative feedback from ships that are on deployment where while the ships are deployed, they really wish they had the opportunity to work hard on that. And so we haven't talked about that yet, but it's something that's on our agenda to discuss and make recommendations to the admirals that we support and to do some more research on whether we want to change some of that again. So when it comes to the level of training that we're demanding, I've got nothing but positive feedback. But that one thing I know I've got negative feedback on, and I'm not sure about yourself.
So I'll be very brief, so we can get Lisa.
Oh, I've got plenty of questions for them,
all right.
trust me. They're coming up strong.
So it's a split in the positive negative. So the chief's mess is very positive. They understand what we're doing with the ESWAS and the damage control. Some of the negative is at the junior level, but this drives where the surface Navy is actually going with first-term sailors, because we want them to be subject matter experts. We want them to be exquisitely good within their rating for self-sufficiency, because we want to operate in access-denied or comms-denied environments where the crew can fix their own gear, the captain is comfortable with that, and that's why we're doing that during the first tour, so that sailor is a really good maintenance man, a really good technician, really good in their rating.
Outstanding. So from our virtual audience, question from Rick Easton. What is the impact of cross-decking at the force level to support deployed, deploying, and other underway ships on sailor morale? My understanding is this is a systematic problem. Is there anything in your view that corporate Navy or NMPC can do to mitigate this challenge? So I'm going to, Forstecchi, we'll talk with you about cross-decking and sailor morale.
Well, I'll talk first about getting the right sailors to the command. And then as far as cross-decking, I'd have to defer to the gentlemen on the other side of the stage. NPC is committed to getting the sailors that we need on our ships in a timely manner to deploy. We've got a lot of things we're working on. We talked about CPO distribution. We're looking into other areas in the Navy where we may have had some weak points of areas we can get strengthened on of, hey, these were people who were ready to go to sea and we just didn't get them to sea. For example, the LIMDO program. When folks who go into, sailors who go into LIMDO, sometimes if they go into, they get screened fit for full duty, and for whatever reason they don't get taken by a ship, they could wind up going back into the system for a while longer, upwards of around a year sometimes, as much as a year. And so we've discovered this and we've started to look into it very closely and tracking people. I've been talking to all of our naval hospitals, all of our LIMDO coordinators in every area, and making sure that we're getting the sailors, once they get fixed. By no means am I trying to say that I don't want sailors to go out and get fixed. If you need, something's hurt on you, I mean, I've got probably 10 medical appointments a month I'm at the doctor's. But if you need to get something fixed on you, get it fixed. And then when you're off of LIMDO, we're going to get you back out there into the fight. Sailors are our most important asset. Our ships out there are fantastic, and don't get me wrong, they're amazing. But without our sailors, they just kind of sit pierside. So we need to get our sailors back out to the ship, and that's what we're focusing on at NPC right now. I'll throw it over to the two gentlemen on the right side of my stage.
Greg, if you don't mind, I'll start and I'll kick it over to you.
Please.
And then Lisa, you see it at the region level as well,
Yeah.
so probably want to chime in on that as well. But so we're in a resource-constrained environment. The Navy can only operate with the funding given to us by Congress. And so the CNO, CNP, NPC have to deal with less than full funding for our personnel accounts. And so they have to make some very hard strategic decisions on what flows out, which then cascades down to the TICOM and onto your backs, onto the sailors and onto the family, that we have to cross-deck divert or TAD assist a sailor away from the hull that they're trained up on. And that is a cascading effect that we're disrupting watch teams. They show up on board that other ship. They have a steep learning curve to integrate into that warship. And then for the family was planning school years, vacations, everything like that around their sailors' predictive schedule within the OFRP. And because of the funding constraints, we had to disrupt that. And that's what we're seeing, with those manning actions that we have to take. And it's not because NPC and CNP isn't doing a great job, it's the funding. Greg?
Yeah, and just to add to your comments, and just to build off that, so in this last year, and Forrest and I both look at this along with the admirals that we support. We had to do around 2,000 manning actions at the TICOM level in the last year. So there's 2,000 families that had to do more than what others had to do. And of course we do it out of necessity. Those are all red line requirements to keep ships and crews safe at sea. We try to do those manning actions right before COM2X so we can integrate them as best can. And we struggle, in addition to some of the fiscal constraints that Jason talked about, are unplanned losses that we see at the last minute. Sailors that get hurt right before the ship deploys. We can lose some very critical sailors like search and rescue qualified sailors, or those that are finely tuned. When you look at the enlisted as a whole, we're so uniquely trained and we provide such technical expertise in a very small area. We become very, very critical. There's not a lot of redundancy. And when you get to our littoral combat ships, there's even less. Some of the sailors that are so very highly skilled and trained on littoral combat ships go through 24 months of training before they show up. So when you suffer an unplanned loss right before deployment, it cuts to the bone almost immediately. And so that's why we have to source from those that we have. We don't operate a bench. We don't have a bunch of electronics technicians or personnel men that are just in a pool somewhere ready to go. So very quickly to be able to respond, to make sure that we're prioritizing the safety of those that go to sea, the safety of those that have to go on deployment, we're required to do those manning actions. And it's difficult to do. We know that we're asking a tremendous amount, and in this last year, those 2,000 families that might be having to be the sailors that the nation needs and deploy twice as much as what they historically had. So it's a multifaceted problem and a long equation, whether it's funding or unplanned losses or difficulties in this last year with COVID. We've had over 16,000 sailors that are in the education process, and that too has been affected by COVID. So they're not hitting the fleet as quickly as they were before, and so it exacerbates these challenges. So hopefully that answers the...
So the reason I wanted Lisa to jump in, because you're also dealing with lack of manning.
Oh yeah.
And then as our sailors come off the ship or our sailors get cross-decked or TAD'd, and that disruption that we put on the family, you're the one that has the safety net with Fleet and Family Support Center, Service Center, and all the resources that we provide to our family. You want to expand on that and what CNIC in your region does on behalf of the sailors?
Yes, like you said, when the personnel get, they have to leave the ship, go limb do or something, I get them on my installations, and I even get some at my region headquarters. And when a person is leaving such a high op-tempo command, coming to shore duty to get healthy, they go through a lot, including mental health issues and different things like that. So we have all the facilities set up, Fleet and Family Service Center, different counseling sessions, chaplains, Balboa. We have a lot of things in place to help them and help their families. Because what I've noticed is when they come off of a ship, a lot of people look at shore duty as, it just slows down drastically for them. And they don't seem to think that their job is as important because the ship can't use them because they're hurt. And they just go through a lot. So I just make sure I talk to my command master chiefs and have them to monitor those sailors, monitor all sailors, but especially those that are coming off of the high op-tempo commands and they have to get themselves back healthy again. We can get them physically healthy, but we also have to monitor their mental state also so they can continue their career. So I understand exactly what you're saying. We gotta get them healthy, get them back at sea, but at the same time, we're just looking at that physical, whereas next the mental is not ready for them to go back out to sea. So I make sure we have those processes in place to help them at all times to get them back to the surface Navy where they belong. So.
No, but Joanne, I'd just like to try to end on a positive note by saying, all those families that we asked to do this and the sailors that are crossing the line, I will tell you, I've yet to see someone that hasn't answered the call and have stepped up to the plate and been the sailor that the nation needs at that time to go out and execute that mission. And I'm very respectful of that fighting spirit for them to do that. I know I've had to do it before, and a lot of us up here have, and it is tough. And like I'm sorry about the sailor's name that asked the question. I can't remember his name, but I'm very respectful of how that affects their individual morale and, to Jason's point, their family readiness.
And I would like to ask, I'm going to extend a little bit on that question. We have several other questions coming up, but for that cross-decking or for that immediate replacement due to a limb due or an unplanned loss circumstance, many of the sailors, don't find out that they're being cross-decked until that moment. And, they'll get like a 3, 4, 5 day notice. Hey, you need to go on the ship, they're deploying. I just got back. Is there any consideration for training in perhaps school of ship or when they get on board that these potentials may exist down the road, so it's not the first time that they're hearing it?
So we, sometimes we do let folks know in very short notice. That's not the intent.
Right.
Our manning organizations within both our TICOMs, they go through, great research to look at everybody that's available. Their individual commands are providing reclamas on the impact if they're taken. Those all get filtered. They all get prioritized by who we think has the least impact within that organization. And then we reach down to the command and inform them that their sailor was selected. So it does take time. There's also a sweet spot that we're trying to get those TMAT assists on board that ship. And if we can get them there kind of at the start of the COM2X, they can train up with those teams so they understand the captain's battle orders, the main space fire doctrine, and all those things to integrate as a crew. Being on board a ship is just the ultimate team game. It takes all of us to come together to operate her on and do whatever the commanding officer chooses to do. So we have to build some time for integration. So unfortunately, sometimes it's just days or weeks before we can notify them. We've noticed that if we do it right before a deployment, we suffer some unplanned losses and we end up sending more folks. If you do it too early, then you're using that resource more than what you want to. So it's a very difficult balance. And know that both of our organizations work very, very hard to try to find the right balance. And we're continuing to be very respectful for what we ask.
Yeah. And Joanne, to the other part of your question about the training, what the N1s do, the organization, is we look at the class of ship, we look at their pay grade, we look at their rating, we look at the NECs held, and so we try to minimize it that it's the exact right person. So when she steps on board, she's able to form into that team for that ultimate team game that Greg's talking about. Unfortunately, sometimes those sailors are what we call red lines, that the ship can't get underway without that skill set on board. And so we look at that, and also we do take into account PERS tempo, that, hey, if the sailor just came back from deployment, like we watched a destroyer come in this morning from her deployment, it's great to see them come back home manning the rails. Those sailors are going to stay there. They're going to take a knee, they're going to see their families, and we do take that into account. If you're the one, we may have to do that, but there's a mission to meet. But we take all that into account before we make that phone call.
And I think that's the most important message to send out to sailors and their commands is that, it's not done willy-nilly. It's not done, just to fill that gap. A lot of the background information, a lot of the stuff that happens behind the scenes, they don't know. And so this is very helpful that, you talk about what goes into making that decision, and I appreciate that. So along the same lines of the cross-decking, our next question comes from Adonis Bulato. What's the Navy doing right now about the LCS, specifically with the variant to the manning shortfalls? Can we talk about LCS a little bit?
So LCS is a very difficult model to man because every single sailor, it has to be a perfect fit, right? It's a small crew, they all perform multiple missions on board there. Their training pipeline is very extensive, and so when they get there, every person counts. And so if we do have that unplanned loss, because of the training tail, it is very difficult to get an immediate replacement on board unless we reach into the blue crew, the gold crew, and bring them over. NPC works with us all the time to identify those sailors that have the right foundation to even go into what we call T2Q, that training pipeline, to get out to the USS Milwaukee, the USS Detroit. It's just a very hard nut to crack because of the small crew size. But Admiral McLean's staff, Admiral Kishner's staff, they're all in. As a matter of fact, Admiral Nowakowski is the LCS task force lead, and they're digging into that as well as some other very vexing issues to get the LCS program even more healthy than what it is today, because it is a very critical platform of what we're going to do now and into the future.
Which are doing incredible work. we've got 4 deployed right now in the Pacific, and the feedback that we've gotten from the combatant commanders and the fleet commanders that operate them, they just want more. There's just been an insatiable demand, and they're super sailors. The amount that those LCS sailors are required to know and operate, every single LCS sailor takes the place of 3 other sailors, and the train to qualify pipeline that the Navy demands of them is incredibly impressive. And so when they go through 24 months of training, and then you have an unplanned loss, it hurts 3 or 4 times as bad. So right now we've been using a lot of the pre-com crews because we're still building up that ship class, and they're doing just incredible, amazing work. And that resource is going to go away. And so it is concerning. And we're also building maintenance debts also to support the ship class. And I will tell you that we don't have all that completely solved, but right now that's what we've been doing to answer the question is we've been pulling from our pre-com units the ships that have yet to be commissioned, and we're using those sailors to fit in the training gaps. With that training pipeline, as long as it is for LCS, there's improvements to find in reducing some downtime in between schools and to try to better flow. So we've made recommendations to put an LCS detailer at the Bureau to try to help smooth that process out, kind of like what we do with our LCACs and other examples where we have specialized detailers to that program. And so from what I know, that's coming online. I'm not sure exactly the start date and when we expect that, but it's in planning and in process. So we can try to ramp up reduce the friction within the training process so we can generate more of those highly skilled sailors more quickly.
Well, all of that kind of leads me into that sailor resiliency and preparedness and the family resiliency and preparedness. So question for you, Master Chief Tisdale. One of the larger concerns for our sailors on the family side is when they deploy is the safety of their family at home and the knowledge and the comfort that they have the resources they need while that active duty sailor is gone or that reserve sailor is gone. So let's talk about childcare. That's a big hot topic. Yeah. What are the plans to bring more childcare service to the area, whether it's San Diego here or in Region Southwest that you have some insight on?
We definitely understand that the child care issue is a big concern. Me being a single parent, my son was always in the Navy child care system, and I know how important it is because I definitely couldn't have gone to work without that help. We're looking at kind of like a hybrid type situation where we can get maybe with the YMCAs to try to get different buildings and different facilities to help us house some of our children that need care. Also, the problem that we're having right now is staffing. We're trying to get more providers in. We're trying to put out incentives to get more providers in because the more providers we have a lot of space. We just don't have the providers to take care of the people because we can only have a certain amount of children per provider. So if we could incentivize getting more providers in, maybe a break on their child care fees and different things like that, I think that would help us out a lot. But there was an old adage that your child didn't come in your sea bag. I want everyone to know that here at Navy Region Southwest, we don't look at that. We look at that as a part of your sea bag because your family is just as important. Your civilian family is just as important as your Navy family. So if they are not taken care of, then you can't take care of your Navy family. So there are plans to talk to different people. It's funding to get new, we have buildings that we can refurbish. We are looking into building new sites. We do have a lot of plans to try to get more child care into the area. It's just, I'm putting the plug out there. If you're a child care provider, come help us out. But it is a top priority. That and barracks and housing, those are our top priorities to get taken care of. Because if we can take care of that family, then that sailor can do what that sailor needs to do.
And do you have any insight or plans for the future for like the 24-hour care for that immediate surge, say for a shipboard sailor or a support command where they need to come in to that overnight watch? Are there plans for that? Are there existing child care opportunities?
We have a couple here in the San Diego area that are 24 hours. We have one out at in Coronado, that's 24 hours. We're trying to get more of that. It's just the providers. We need providers to make that, but that is in the plans to do that because we understand that not everyone works the same shift. No, we have night shift, we have mid shifts and different things like that. So we want to be able to provide for everyone equally so everyone can have the opportunity to do their jobs. So yes, we do have that in the works to create more of those type facilities.
Outstanding. And so from the NPC side of the house, what kind of family considerations do you look at when a sailor's looking for orders, you know, size of family and those kinds of things?
Absolutely. We are a family-first organization at NPC. We will make those decisions for people. Hey, I've got spousal colo, and we've got to make sure that we're taking care of families. We're not separating them. Sailors who are been on ship on a hard sea duty for 3 to 5 years, and it's time to go to shore duty, we're going to make sure that we get you a good shore duty. We're not going to slam you back to back. We are always thinking about our families when we're detailing people. If our detailers, you should never hear from a detailer saying, well, listen, it's not my problem that you're married. Believe me, that is one of our #1 priorities, is making sure we're taking care of our Navy family. And I couldn't agree more with Lisa. It's the Navy family. It's not just the sailor. It's, you know, the whole family network is what makes up our Navy family.
Outstanding. So we do have another question from our virtual audience here from Jeff Heems, Surf Devron 1. As an operator, being flexible and adaptable is critical. Can you give us some examples of sailors being industrious and innovative with self-sufficiency?
Oh,
so I see you shaking your head there, Forsnap.
So because the question came from your house,
Yeah.
I'll let you go first, and then I'll come on top.
No, I'd like to defer to you.
Oh, okay, then.
Because I know Commodore Heems is an incredible leader, but there's some things that we experienced on the East Coast that I think just fit quite well.
So, you know, USS Stout just broke the record for the most days underway at sea without touching land. It almost takes you back to the age of Nelson, right, where Nelson spent 2.5 years at sea before Trafalgar. So the USS Stout, over 200 days at sea, and the hangar door goes offline. And we're like, okay, what are we going to do? We can't take an entire aviation mission offline. And so we can't pull it in, we can't get it fixed. So the sailors on board the Stout said, hey, we've got this. The captain said, go. They went down into the gym, they found a 75-pound dumbbell. They melted that son of a gun down. They made a spindle. No, it was not mil spec. They put it in there, and the door operated, and we brought that mission package back up online. That's sailors thinking outside the box, being self-sufficient in a denied environment, and that's what we need today, and that's what we need in the future. That's what we're seeing in the surface Navy, because it's hard, and hard work builds morale. Those young men and women on that ship got it done.
Yeah, our men and women are just incredible, and that's our competitive edge. It's so impressive as you visit ships when you go down to the HT shops, and you just see the out-of-the-box thinking and the craftsmanship, how they make something from nothing. Mm-hmm. And to watch the MRs and the HTs and the D-Seamen, and you do not have to be a repair rating, but just their inspiring creativity to solve the problem. You know, I think that's one of the things that's so unique about our sea service. You know, we go to sea with the ship that we have, with the men and women that are talented on board, and you have with what's in your ship to solve your problem. And time again, just like Jason's example, they come through. And it's just inspiring to see their creativity at work.
Well, speaking of creativity and how things are working, I'm going to shift a little to our COVID situation and how, you know, sailor ingenuity prevails every time. And you've made some great examples of that. So let's talk about advancement and boards and in specifics, our CPO initiation season. So Master Chief Tisdale, how do you see the CPO initiation season going this year?
I see it going well, actually. We had a little taste of it last season. We started early preparing because we tell chiefs and our sailors also to be flexible, be ready to change at the drop of a dime. So COVID made us show our flexibility, made us change at the drop of a dime. So we have mitigations in place. We're making sure we're doing the correct training, something that's relevant, something that they'll be able to use in the fleet. So we started the planning early, which is, I think, is what got us to be where we're at right now. We planned early. We have the correct plan in place to make sure that the season, I mean, it's going to be fun still. It's going to be, they're going to learn. They're going to do we're going to do what we do during chief season. But I think COVID flipped the script for us a little bit, but we're prepared for it.
Outstanding. And yes, Forsyth, I'd like you to address that too, and how you see the season going and the future boards as NPC tries to get back on track.
Let me cover first initiation. I think last year's COVID situation, probably the nicest way to put it, kind of defined the chief's mess. Find a obstacle and challenge a chief to get past that obstacle every time. We're going to get through it. And that's what happened last year in CPO initiation. We had tremendous amounts of separation depending on where you were and how your local area was hit with COVID. In Millington, we were 100% virtual. Our selectees got together the first day at a distance of 6 to 8 feet, and the next time they were together was the day of final night, where they were also again 6 to 8 feet apart, and we did individual pinnings for each new chief. That's what makes the chief's mess great. It doesn't matter where you're at, and there's ever going to be a set, this is how you're going to do CPO initiation, because every place will be different. We're going to do it differently in Millington, then they're going to do it in San Diego, then they're going to do it in Norfolk, then they're going to do it in Yokosuka. So you're always going to see some differences in that. And the obstacles that we overcome really, to me, drive home the point of the magic of the chief's mess, is that regardless of the obstacles in front of us, we're going to always succeed. We're always going to come out on top. That's what makes us the greatest Navy in the world. Our friends to the other side of the Pacific don't have that. They don't have an enlisted force that is trained to think on their own, trained to solve problems. And that's what makes us the greatest Navy in the world, in my opinion. Moving forward with selection boards, I get a lot of comments of, hey, it'd be great if we could go back to the standard dates for CPO season. Everyone gets pinned on the 15th or 16th of September. For now, we're going to continue to remain a little bit flexible. We have very specific amount of space in Millington for our selection boards, and it's like a big Tetris game, trying to figure out, okay, we have the active E7 board and we have 13 other boards going on at once. We have certain laws of the boards have to happen at a specific time, and we have to make them all work in. So I would ask for some patience. Are we there yet to where we're going to get back to our traditional dates? Probably about 2 years away. But I appreciate everybody's understanding and flexibility on that. I can tell you that right now, as we speak, I left Millington on Monday. The active E7 board was moving along very strongly. I expect them to be finished up here in a couple weeks, and hoping to have Chiefs results out the first week of October.
All right, well, you heard it live. First week of October for those CPO results.
Forstici is taking bets.
Is this where we say Bill Houlihan?
Yeah.
Yes.
Hi, Bill.
Okay.
Yes.
Hi, Bill. Okay, so Force Carlson, how do you see it on board the ships and in deployment, and how do you see the season going this year? Any changes or?
You know, just to add what Forstici said, it's just incredible to see, once again, the ingenuity on how we respond to times of crisis, and the sailors have reacted and continued to answer the call through COVID. I think back when we started to add, pre-ROM sequester to our lexicon, which I've never said before, last year. And I can remember getting a call from a mother, and it was going to be her daughter's birthday, and she was going to celebrate her 21st birthday in a sequester situation before the ship deployed. And she asked me if I could get her daughter a birthday cake so she could celebrate her birthday. And I have a soft spot in my heart for moms, so of course you do what most folks do, like, yes, Mom, I will get your daughter a birthday cake. And so I brought it to the hotel where we had her in pre-ROM sequester and gave her a cake and dialed up her mother on Zoom and on FaceTime We're able to sing happy birthday. And it goes to the problem-solving characteristics that we have that's within all of us. And so understanding what the current climate is with COVID, we'll continue to do that way. You know, part of initiation is learning how to prioritize and how to adapt, how to overcome. It's a safe time to challenge sailors with problem-solving skills where if they do fail, they don't fail at the expense of others. And so it's part of the process. So we'll continue again through COVID, and we're going to challenge them and give them a safe opportunity to fail and to learn from that. And so, you know, COVID is just something, it's just another problem to solve. It's another problem to learn from and be respectful for, and to train safely in that environment. And so it'll be another challenging year, but they're up to the challenge. They're incredible. And a lot of learning will take place. Some will safely fail, but they'll be better for it. And they'll be better leaders for our sailors that are out there.
Great. So COVID-19, you know, we've all lived with it for the past couple of years now. Our sailors have been extremely resilient, so have their families. Initiation last year, we learned a lot, like Chris was saying, how to do this virtually, how to do this safe. And this year, our Chiefs Mess will continue to do the same thing. We're going to be in compliance with the HP Con guidance, the SOG, and for our ships on the East Coast, all of our commands, the 101 commands underneath Surfland, we're going to roll out Warrior Toughness this year because, like Greg was saying, we learn how to be adaptable and meet challenges, but part of what initiation has done for the Chief Petty Officers Mess for all these years is it teaches sailors how to be tough, how to see the punch coming and brace for it, take it, and keep going. To the right of that is resilience. But this year, what Admiral Bernanke's team started up at Great Lakes in 2017, it has been built upon, refined, and we're going to push that out this year in 2021. So our sailors who are going through RTC, getting more damage control training, getting the Warrior Toughness training, showing up on hull, now they're going to have a Chiefs Mess and a wardroom that understands the concept of mind, body, and soul, of being tough and connecting with those sailors. So now we have a tougher crew on the back end of initiation. So that's, COVID-19 is not stopping us. We're meeting it, we're mitigating it, and we're doing even more.
Outstanding. I'm looking forward to that sailor coming out here soon, and our new chiefs.
Yeah.
Which brings me into our next subject, how you make chief, how you get selected in chief, and on that path to chief for our enlisted sailors. And that all involves our evaluation system. So Forstici, can you talk about the evaluation system and what's on the future horizon here?
I would love to, and I'm also going to throw out a little surprise for you after that. So everywhere I go, I get asked about, hey, when is the new electronic evals going to be out? Well, I can tell you last week, both Admiral Halsey and I played around with the electronic eval, and it was awesome. It's everything that I want it to be and more. What's going to happen is you're going to go online, you're going to put in your evals. So for those of you who have any experience working with flag evals, it's all done online. It just looks like a regular NAVFIT 98 program, except it's done online. We're working on the technology now to get it on ships. At the end of the day, you're going to electronically submit it up, use your CAC card to sign it, and you're going to send it off to NPC. What that's going to do for us is you're not going to have to worry about evaluations being rejected because they're going to get checked before they get sent into NPC using business rules. You're going to get it immediately into your electronic service record so it gets screened properly at the board. It's fantastic. Now, you were talking about how do we get to the board and what happens at the board. Well, I'm going to tell you, we just finished doing a video in Millington. We're finishing it up, a lot of editing, a lot of focus groups, and what do you think? So I don't know. What do you know? I don't know. But we're going to go ahead and we're going to be releasing a video here in the next couple of months that talks directly to sailors, E6 and below. It talks two videos. The first video will talk about how do you get ready for the board, making sure your package is ready. And the second one will go into great detail about what happens at the selection board. I get asked time and time again, well, what happens at the selection board? Is it fair? Is it legitimate? We're going to show you what happens at the selection board. We set some things up for folks to give you an honest look of what actually goes on. And I'm really excited for that to be able to come out. Should be out in another month or two.
Well, and that's a great video option for sailors. Chain of command, the triad, the wardroom, as well as our enlisted sailors to see how that process works. You know, although I retired in 2015, you know, prior to retirement, I had been selected to sit on more than 12, 15 selection boards or continuation boards. And I am here to tell you that as much as a younger sailor, I thought there's got to be something behind the scenes here that, you know, throw up the records and see who lands in the pile for selection. I'm here to tell you that of all of the processes and all of the boards and all of the administrative issues I've seen in the Navy in 33 years, the selection board is the most clean, honest, procedural and directive process that I've ever been a part of. It is absolutely, is it flawless? You know, nothing's flawless, but I'm here to tell you the things that you're going to talk about in that video are going to validate what a lot of senior leaders and prior board members discussed, whether they did a written PowerPoint or discussed in, you know, briefings, to what the Navy allowed us to talk about without being in violation of the oath. And so I think that that's a great step forward in this day and age's technology and our advanced intellectual, you know, sailors and officer and enlisted to learn more about how those boards work, not just for enlisted, but our officer boards as well. So I'm really excited to hear that.
Joe, one thing I would like to add, I get asked all the time, all right, how do I get my command highlighted at the selection board? Whether it's recruiting, whether it's RTC, no matter what the platform, everyone, the Briggs, my own Briggs asked me yesterday, hey, how do we get our names in on the precepts? I'm talking directly now to every Master Chief in the fleet. If you want to make a difference, put your name in and come to SIT selection board, whether it's the Command Master Chief board, the 8-9 board, or the 7 board. Boards are now 2 weeks in length. So it's a very digestible time for you to be away from your command. It's not the 5 and 6 weeks that it was in the past. If you want to make a difference and make sure you're getting your community represented at selection boards, put your name in to sit a selection board. That's the best way I can offer you to get you to be able to tell your story more, is come to Millington, sit the board, and get your community's name out there.
Yeah, it's incredible advice. You know, I've said a number of them, and I'll tell you, and the boards change. You know, writing styles change, and what we value as a service changes. And so every time I have an opportunity to go do that, I come away being able to provide better guidance to commands. And I've got great respect for our selection board process. Every time I go there, it just gets better. And it's nothing's perfect, but I'll tell you, holy cats, it's really close. And every single record that goes before the board is treated with incredible dignity and respect. Every record is briefed to all of us as voting members that are panel members. And holy cats, is it competitive. You know, we've got some incredibly hard-working sailors out there, and we leave just so much incredible talent on the table that you hear that aren't selected, because the quotas are the quotas. It's what the service needs. But I've always been incredibly impressed for how we run selection boards.
So I'm going to chime in real quick, and this is what Greg just said there about the talent that we have in our Navy. So sat the selection board, and so I'm speaking to the sailors that are sitting out here right now. You are simply amazing. I'm sitting there at the selection board, and I'm reading evaluation after evaluation. I'm like, oh my goodness, this is incredible. And so I went back to 2001 in my own record, the year I made chief, and I started looking at my 5 evaluations before that year, and comparing it against the precept and the sailors that were competing that year. And I was like, oh yeah, I would not have made the cut. I would not have. The quality of sailors that we're bringing into the Navy, that are being recruited in, trained, and out there, you're better. You are better than I ever was, and I'm excited to see where you take our Navy in the future. Absolutely amazing.
You know, so each year, and I'll talk again about the CPO selection period, each year when the results come out, and our recent reserve results come out, and soon our active duty results come out, you will hear from, you know, sailors that you've worked with, or sailors in your commands or in your contingency, you know, why can't the selection board just tell me what I did wrong or why I didn't get selected? And, you know, my first response, and I'll still say it as a retiree, 99% of you have done nothing wrong. It's about the competitive packages there of what other people have done in addition to or slightly more or different and rating specific and qualifications and so forth. But I'd like to address, that big question. I had the same question when I wasn't selected for chief the first look. Why can't the selection board tell that sailor why they were not selected? And so, Forstici, I'm gonna let you address that one.
Thanks, Joe. I appreciate that. I get that question every day. I can't go anywhere, and the first question is, hey, Force, how can we tell sailors how each person individually did on a board? We review about 17,000 records at any one given board. And I am constantly racking my brain in process improvement with the Admiral, trying to come up with ways that we can give feedback to each sailor individually. Right now, I don't have a good answer for you on how to get there from here, other than I get great feedback from the three others here on this board on a regular basis of how to do it better. I would love to be able to give feedback, but right now it's just a mass of people. Boards would take a lot longer if we had to give down individual feedback, which is why we're showing the selection board video to give people feedback of how the board works. Part of that, you have to go on faith that you have leadership who cares about you and is committed to advancing the best and fully qualified in the Navy. Are we perfect? No, we're not. Could we get better? Yes, we are. And I like to think over the last year or two, we've gotten better, and we're going to continue to get better. Does that mean eventually there will be a time when I can give individual feedback? Maybe. Right now, we give, usually we'll release after every selection board season, notes from the board presidents. I can tell you if you're looking for things to do to better yourself in selection, go into your ECPs. The ECPs are the documents we use to grade records at the selection board. You can find them on the My Navy HR website, and it kind of lays out the groundwork. And we're constantly reviewing those ECPs. Another shout out to our Master Chiefs in the fleet. Our ECMs send out the ECPs to every Master Chief and every rate in the Navy every year to fill us out and tell us, hey, are we meeting the mark? And the response isn't always good as it could be. So again, Master Chiefs, when you're not applying to the selection board, I need you answering my Bupers ECMs and making sure that those ECPs are getting updated.
Outstanding.
I've added our career rating ladders to any of the command, any of the CDBs, the career development review boards that I do. And those rating ladders, we continue to invest in and update them, and your team does that along with the community managers. And those are an invaluable tool to make sure that you're structuring your career on the right path. Sometimes, we know that they're not, the opportunities that you're interested in don't always exist. But when they do open the doors, take the hard jobs and really use those career rating ladders when you're considering your next tour.
So on that note, taking care of yourself before you can take care of others and developing your career and so forth, I'd like to ask each one of you, what do you feel the importance is, or is there an importance, and what the takeaway is, of sailors of all pay grades, enlisted, officers, of engaging in leadership symposiums like this one, or the myriad of other organizations that do leadership symposiums? And what's your message to those sailors about the importance of attending, or the takeaway, and to the triad leadership to support that attendance? I'll start with you, Master. Forrest, you're on the furthest one. We'll go down the line.
Understood. Thank you, Joe. So at the end of the day, we're not Carnival Cruise Line, we're not Norwegian, we're not Disney. We are professional maritime warriors. This is a profession. If you raised your hand the first time and you enlisted in the Navy, if you took the oath of office, you took your commission the first time, you may not know what you're getting into, but the minute you re-enlisted, the minute you went past your Divo tour, you are now committed to being a professional maritime warrior. So associations like this, other leadership forums where you can engage with other professionals and talk about what you do. It's not just a living, it's a profession that you have committed yourself to expand your knowledge, to operate safely at sea, to be victorious in combat, not just compete, but to win in that very binary environment, and how to take care of your sailors and your family. You learn that by talking with other professionals. That's why associations and organizations and meetings are so critical to what we do.
Thank you. Forrest.
Yeah, I joke around sometimes that I learned that you could boil hard-boiled eggs in a rice cooker. You know, I just laughing about it, but I never learned, you know, I never knew that before. And they're perfect every time, like 12 minutes in the rice cooker, like the shells just fall off. And I bring that up because you got to be humble to realize that you don't know everything. You know, I don't know everything. And I learn every day. And whether it's the Service Navy Association or other forums where you can be part to learn from other leaders, to take best practices for them, you have to have some humility inside to open up your mind to say, I don't know everything, and I'm willing to learn. And so you're rubbing shoulders and having conversations with folks that have had different experiences than you, and you have to be willing to open up your mind and learn from those. It's a great avenue to do that.
Outstanding. Master Chief Tisdale.
You know, Joe, I get a lot of questions from sailors. It's like, you know, if I'm not getting selected, why should I keep going? Why should I keep doing this? And I tell them there's nothing that you're doing. You're not doing anything wrong. You're doing what we need you to do, what we want you to do. And it's a quota thing. But I tell them, you know, if you know you're doing this and it's supposed to get you to this path right here and you're still not getting there, branch off a little bit and do something just a little bit different to get you, you know, to where you need to be. In these type of symposiums, you need to come to these symposiums because you learn things. You learn things that you didn't know. The people, I'm learning stuff from these gentlemen that I did not know, and I'm a Master Chief of 32 years, so there's always something out there to be learned. And so if you just branch off a little bit and try something a little bit different, it'll get you over that hump. So these types of symposiums will get you there because the information is here and people are telling you things that you did not know. So broaden your horizons and take in a little bit more, and you'll get there.
Force.
Joe, we talked earlier about initiation, so this kind of, to me, brings us back to the Chief's Mess. And what's the success of the Chief's Mess? Well, we talk, we share ideas, best practices. And as leaders, you know, I think Greg wrote down exactly what I wrote down when I was going to answer. Thanks, Greg. But we need to make sure we keep learning. And a lot of those lessons we can learn from folks who came before us, senior folks who are in the SNA. I was lucky, my first ship, I had this chief engineer, and this guy was terrifying. What a great guy, great smile, used to wear these big cowboy boots. I remember just like it was yesterday, I had to get DC qualified from him. And you would do your walk around with him. And what amazed me was this really imposing figure, young ET3 walking around with this lieutenant, how he was also interested about me as a person. Then flash forward a couple years later, I ran across that same lieutenant was my commanding officer on one of my ships. And he's sitting back there right now. How you doing, sir? Captain Nichols, yes, sir, you. And I would tell you, one of the reasons why I'm a Chief Petty Officer today is that gentleman right there. Why is that? Because he took time to know his people, he trusted his people, he treated them with dignity and respect. And those are lessons that we as leaders, I don't care if you're a lieutenant, I don't care if you're a third class or a force master chief, a fleet master chief, those are lessons that we need to learn and continuously learn over and over again about treating people with dignity and respect. And so organizations like this, get those messages out there, get those ideas out there. I would encourage you, if you have a chance to dial in, show up, whatever it is you can take when it comes to any kind of leadership symposium to better yourself. Take the time. Will it always speak to you? Maybe not. But you know what? You may walk away with that one nugget of wisdom, and that one nugget might be the difference that has you inspire one sailor. Yep. Because ultimately, folks, why are we doing this? This is great being here and seeing everybody, and you know, we walk around and we're all, you know, senior people. But if we're not inspiring our junior sailors for greatness every day, what are we doing? What's the point? So come out to these events, whether it's SNA, no matter what the leadership organization you're going to. Watch your TED Talk, do whatever you got to do. But always improve yourself, because you're going to make the difference in a sailor's life. And there's an ensign or a lieutenant walking around who's going to meet Admiral McLean today, and he or she's going to be awestruck. Oh my God, I can't believe I met him. and they're going to want to be him someday. So take the time, come to these things, walk away with some nuggets, and try and implement them in your daily life.
I appreciate that and your thoughts on that and your support for that, because I agree. As a young sailor, I was dragged kicking and screaming to a leadership symposium, and it too is the reason that I became a chief and then Fleet Master Chief later. So to our audience, thank you for your support, for encouraging your enlisted and your officers to attend these leadership symposiums, and particularly our SNA symposiums. So we have about 5 minutes left, and I'd like to offer each one of you an opportunity for a shout out as we wrap up our enlisted panel. So first up, who's your shout out to?
So my shout outs to the joint Coast Guard Navy team down off the coast of Haiti right now, delivering tremendous support to that stricken country, specifically to the sailors of the USS Arlington and USS Billings that are down there just doing God's work. Well done, shipmates, and keep crushing it.
Joanne, thanks for asking. So my shout out's going to go to the mighty Pinckney. Just as we started today, they sailed past as they came from deployment. I think all of us as sailors can just reflect on how great homecomings are. It's hard to find a better day in the Navy. So congratulations to them and their families as they come back off the line today. And just know that we greatly appreciate your service at sea.
I would like to give a shout out to all of my installation CMCs, but especially the CMCs here in the metro area, because they go above and beyond to take care of the war fighters and their families and do whatever they can to make their job easier. So shout out to them.
Thanks, Joe. My shout out is simply to the civilians and sailors at our PSDs who are out processing claims, gains, and getting you paid correctly. We're not perfect, but we're trying really hard to get better every day. So thank you to those hardworking men and women, the sailors, the civilians, the PSDs and TSCs across the country and around the world for all the great work you do on a daily basis.
Well, my shout out is to that young E3 out there and that young Lieutenant JG, who is going to be our future CNO and our future MCPON. Thank you for what you're doing, and thank you for what you're about to do, and for all of those that support you. And to our audience here and our virtual audience, thank you for joining us today at the SNA Waterfront Symposium here in San Diego. We look forward to seeing you at our national event in January next year. Thank you.